Board members, thank you. Let's go ahead and jump back in. We are on agenda item 7. This is the interagency data sharing agreement. And do we have Katie Chalice, Director Chalice, with us? Yes. Okay. Board members, you may remember this item. It started in law and licensing. It came to the full board, was it last month? 2 months ago. We voted against it. The legislature took some legislation took some action, and here it is again. And so we would like to present this and be compliant with law. With that, I'll turn it over to Director Chalice to tee it up.
Thanks, Chair. Katie Chalice, Director of Privacy. I'm going to be real honest. Anything I was going to say is what you just said. So is there anything you'd like me to add, Chair?
For me personally, no, because I'm aware of this item and I've seen it go through the process. I don't see any lights. I'm happy. Oh, there's Member Bollinger. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. If I may direct a question to Director Chalice.
Sure.
Director Chalice, in the proposal, it talks about the data that is wanting to be collected for all other K-12 students. My understanding, that's not those schools that are not participating in the study. It does say teacher cactus ID, and I know that was something that we've spent quite a bit of time as a board talking about. With the updates to the law, is it allowable for us to have de-identifiable data for the teachers that are not participating, or is that required by law to have that identifiable?
That's a great question. Can I ask a clarifying question? When you say by law, are you referring to the law that requires the board to share that? Okay. No, the bill does not, the bill that passed and is now law, does not specify that it needs to be cactus ID. In fact, as I understand, the data requesters, the Center for School of the Future, are open to the idea that it be a different identifier. We just didn't have one, although I have what I think is a happy update. So while we do not have unique identifiers other than cactus ID for, I guess we could say, veteran educators, there has been a movement, particularly with USIMS, to move to, it's like a 12-digit ID number. So going forward, should this relationship continue, it's possible we could use that identifier in lieu of a cactus ID. But the short answer is no, the law does not require a cactus ID, but they would need some kind of identifier, and we lack something in our systems that currently, other than cactus ID.
I just have a follow-up. So follow-up question. So then would it be unrealistic to ask for a de-identifying number for teachers given this current circumstance?
I think if the board wanted to make that a priority, staff could do it. It would be more complicated and would require maintaining some sort of like data match on the side. So, our staff would have to pull the data, create a unique identifier other than a cactus ID, and somehow maintain that so that when it came time to do another request, they would match against that new identifier they made. So I would say it's doable, but wouldn't be, it would require an extra step.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Member Bollinger. I'm going to go ahead and put a motion forward. I move that the board approves the interagency data sharing agreement with Utah State University's Center for School of the Future. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Member Lear.
Sorry, I'm always at the end of this because I'm doing something else. I had a question, I think for Katie. This isn't for the final, is this for the final approval of this? I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
So I have a question, maybe for Katie, maybe for a staff person who's working with Utah State. My question is, as I read quickly through this agreement, I couldn't tell if this was an ongoing relationship where where the School for the Future continues to mine data from the USBE, including teacher and student data, or if it was a one-shot picture in time. So can you speak to that, Katie? If that's okay, can
Yeah, Katie,
Director Childs?
and we also have Dr. Forbush and a team of individuals as well. But I think Katie can answer that.
That's helpful. I don't need a long response. I
Sure.
just need a brief explanation there.
Oh, so I'm hearing you say you'd like me to speak about 15 minutes on this?
At least.
So to answer your question, the program itself is only written to be a 5-year program. So
Okay.
at the longest, unless the legislature renews the program, this is a 5-year data sharing relationship. It would begin with a big push of data initially, and then ongoing, I imagine it would be an annual or maybe twice a year data pull that we would provide to the center.
And then one more brief follow-up that just occurred to me as Katie was speaking. Will the teachers and students whose data are going to be used, will they be notified that their data are going to be used for this purpose?
No, unless a district or charter decided to take that action on their own. I think educators would probably be aware in the districts and charters that are participating, because they would understand that part of the evaluation process is sharing their data. But students, no, unless the district kind of on their own took that initiative.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Thank you very much. Thanks for that.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is that the board approves the interagency data sharing agreement with Utah State University's Center for School of the Future, USBE 250018 IAA. Let's vote. Thank you, board. That passes 8 in favor, 5 in opposition, 1 abstention. Those in opposition being Member Brinton, Member Green, Member Wood, or Vice Chair Wood, Member Lear, Member Bogus, and abstaining is Member Hall. Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 8, board resolution. And I'm going to turn the time over to Member Bogus to tee things up.
Awesome, thanks. So just in the interest of Robert's rules, I would move that the board approve draft 2 of the resolution directing the removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Utah schools.
We have a motion and a second. Back to you, Member Bogus.
So I believe we have another pending motion, and if you'd like me to speak after that, I'm happy to.
So there's the motion before the board currently is that the board approve the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah schools, draft 2. Yes.
Shouldn't we hear a statement about the first motion before we hear the substitute motion?
I've invited Member Bogus to speak to the motion. She has indicated a potential second motion, so essentially she's waived her desire to speak to that, and so
Okay.
I'm going to go down the list. I've got Member Hall, or is that right, Member Bogus? Okay, Member Hall.
Thank you.
I'd like to move to postpone draft 2 of the resolution to the full board meeting on May the 2nd, 2025.
So we have a motion to
May 1st.
postpone consideration. Let's just, we'll make sure we get it correct on the screen here, then I'll read it out. You let me know when you're ready, Member Hall.
Okay. Move to postpone draft 2 of the resolution to the full board meeting on May the 1st, 2025.
Is that ready, Member Hall?
Yes, sir.
So the motion is to postpone consideration of the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah schools, draft 2, until the full board meeting on May 1st, 2025. That's been seconded by Member Kelly. Member Kelly, Member Hall, do you want to speak to that motion?
This definitely it just needs more time. So this is not, it's not good. It's not ready.
Okay, thank you. Member Kelly?
Yeah, I know that I'm one of 15 board members that have been inundated with emails concerning this topic, and I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding in terms of the intent of this resolution. And I think that the resolution is causing a lot of questions as to what exactly does this resolution achieve and what is the goal. The students, the faculty members that presented Latinos in Action is a program that, you know, I was hoping that Jose Enriquez would be here. You know, he's somebody that I have a deep respect for. What he's done with Latinos in Action is a phenomenal program. And so I would not want any members of the public to in any way be led to believe that it's the intention of this board to eliminate a program like Latinos in Action. I think it's a valuable program in our schools that needs to continue. Provides great opportunities for our youth, for our kids. I actually started Latinos in Action at American Fork High School and recognize the value of that program. And there's other programs, including Unified Sports, that I would not want to mislead the public that that there's any threat of that program being eliminated, or that it's the intention of the board to eliminate that program in any way, shape, or form. So I think, to clear up a lot of misunderstanding, I think this this motion by Member Hall, I think, is necessary at this point.
Thank you. Member Reel.
Thank you, Chair Hymas. I'd like to ask a question of the maker of the motion and those that have placed their names on the resolution, if that's all right.
Are you, let me ask this.
It's
The
a-
maker of the motion is Member Hall.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yes, right.
Okay. If he decides to answer, yeah, throw the question out, then he'll decide, I guess.
Yep. I had hoped that we'd come in today and we would vote against this resolution and move on, because to me, there is no amount of work or time or wordsmithing or changes that would give the public or myself any chance of being something that we would actually support and approve. It is something that is taking up a lot of our time. It's unnecessary. We have a law in place, HB 261. I don't care if you list specific things that can or cannot be or are included or not included. I think we overwhelmingly heard from those that care deeply across the state about programs that are impacted and targeted by this sort of language. So I am wondering why we would postpone, and do we believe that there is a space or language that would actually be acceptable and be something that the public would approve of? Because to me, we already have a law in place. We do not need this resolution. There are better things that we could be working on right now, and postponing it is dragging out all of the pain and stress and worry from the hundreds of people that we have heard from. It seems really irresponsible, and I think that we've all seen that this is something that we should just personally vote against and move on to the work that really matters.
Member Hall, you have a response?
I do appreciate everything that Ms. Reels shared, and my hope is that when we get a chance to work on this together as a group, that my heart, I don't believe that this resolution depicts my heart of what I feel on this issue at all. I do believe that we can put something together that sends a message that we are living in a country that's approaching 40% multicultural. And we need, our conversation needs to shift from all the things that divide us to the things that bring us together. And so I hope that as we work towards something here that we can work on together as a board, that it will echo that message. You know, I work with many different groups from many different backgrounds. And what I've got a chance to see that people can come together. It's all about messaging. And I believe wholeheartedly, especially in the United States of America, our messaging needs to change to that. Not focusing on the things that divide us, but the things that bring us together. And so that's what my hope and my prayers as we move forward, that we can come together and put something together that relays that message. Everything that Mr. Kelly said a few moments ago is exactly what I didn't want. And so if that was communicated in this resolution, that's not what I wanted at all. That was not the message that was intended there. So I hope and pray that we can put something together that does communicate the message of my heart, that would echo to the state of Utah, that we want a state that's focused on coming together.
Thank you. Member Booth?
Thank you. Early this morning at about 4:30, as my telephone across the room kept dinging, and I knew that there was a whole lot of important information that I needed to access to be ready for today. I listened and finally got up and saw that there were several hundred new responses from concerned constituents that I've appreciated so much. I'm particularly grateful that just not emails, but I have had many phone calls, which is pretty rare. At least given the last 4 years, there haven't been very many times that they actually picked up the phone and called me, sometimes a couple of times. And so I felt, and I don't know, Chair Hymas, what the possibility or what the correct procedure would be. You can help me understand that. But I wrote very quickly and would seek input from the board, just a response, a letter in response to our hundreds of constituents. I've titled it to our partners in public education, and I sent it to Kelsey. I don't know whether it's possible for her to get it up on the screen, but I can read it, and then you can tell me if I should just shut up or whether there is a way to our partners in public education,
Member
Utah's
Booth.
Citizens, Governor Spencer Cox,
Member
Lieutenant
Booth.
Governor Henderson. Yes.
Can I just interrupt for a second? So we have a motion in play. I'm not sure if because let me make sure I am understanding. You are asking
Is there a way
is to send a letter to
in place of what?
in place of this. So you
So
need-
I don't know how to do it.
It would be a substitute motion,
Okay.
but even still, as the agenda item is board resolution, I'm a little bit
Yeah, I don't know.
unsure on direction in this regard to say, I want to replace the resolution with a letter. I think it's in order.
No.
No.
Substitute motion.
But are you asking to replace the resolution, or are you just asking for this to go out?
I'm asking for this to go out, whether or
With
not
the
we
resolution?
we postpone.
I see.
I want to respond to the hundreds of people that have been sending messages, both for and against.
So you're asking for a response to emails,
Yes.
to inquiries. Of,
Whether if we do postpone, if we vote to postpone, then I don't want to just wait for several weeks and meet, however we meet, and come up with whatever. I want to respond to, while the iron's hot, the people who have been so gracious to share their ideas and their concerns.
Thank you,
So
Member Booth.
whatever.
Yeah, let me take 3 minutes. Is that okay? Board, we're going to take 3 minutes, and we're going to figure out procedurally how we can how this looks. Okay? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not trying to slow us down here.
Can we have a copy of it? Because I only see the.
Okay, board members, thank you for your
She's gonna
patience.
send it. Forward it to the board, yeah.
I would like to read the rest of it.
So
if I have to vote.
Kelsey is going to forward this potential letter to the board, our board members, all of you, each of you. This is not in relation, it is in relation to the resolution, but it would be a different item that Member Booth will bring up after we have discussed and voted on the motions that are at hand, if that makes sense. So we are back to Member Hall's substitute motion. And so let's look at lights here. We've got Member Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to speak to the motion to postpone this. I want to start by saying our job as a board is to make sure that our schools are complying with the law. However, our board policy number 2003, which talks about board resolutions, clearly states that a resolution is simply an improved statement expressing the opinion of the majority of the board and does not have the force of rule or law. So if the purpose, and speaking to the makers of the resolution, the sponsors, trying to figure out what is the purpose of this resolution. And my understanding is that they want to make sure that HB 261 is being followed. And with the way that it has been written, it doesn't hold any weight in making that happen. And with that, although I do worry about compliance of law, and I think our schools are working really hard to comply with the law, I don't believe that the resolution is the right approach. And as we heard earlier in public comment, is when we have a few that are non-compliant, it doesn't mean that we need to blast everybody. And so I would prefer for us to spend our time actually, addressing specific concerns if that is the case, instead of a blatant statement. And so for me, postponing this discussion will not change my vote. And so I would encourage us to handle the situation today. And in addition to that, I think it's just a bad look for the board. We're creating a situation that makes us look like we're avoiding hard conversations, in my opinion. And it feels like for us to address all of the hundreds of emails that we've received, our constituents and our community deserve to know where we stand, and they deserve to be supported. Our teachers and our students are feeling attacked, whether that's the intent or not. It's the current reality. And so for those reasons, I won't be able to support postponing this, and I will not be able to support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Green?
First of all, I've taken time to read through all of the responses that we've gotten in our email. I've had lots of phone calls, I've had texts, I've had it all. I've returned phone calls, and I recognize that there's a lot of confusion about the concept of DEI, which is exactly why DEI has been defined in this resolution, because it gets very confusing very, very quick. My argument is that there are tenets that align to the definitions as written. And I think that we see that nationwide, and we also see that worldwide. And for us, it's a moment to pause and think about, you know, being maybe, you know, a rock in a rushing stream, just kind of just, we're all just going down this, and when that settles, there's just kind of been a lot of destruction that can be left. I do believe that this is a conversation that has needed to come up for a very long time. And we're talking like 5-7 years. And my first example of why these definitions would matter so much and why we need to take the time to discuss them and think about them and look at what is coming in through academia. And I won't take the time to point those examples out, but we can see it at the highest levels of our universities and all the way down to, you know, personal example of SEL lessons that taught, and I quote, that individualism is selfish and collectivism is what we should all do. Collectivism, that, and a video shown that it wasn't the first person standing that was the leader, it was the second person that ended up bringing the crowd. Be a follower, that's the true leader. And it is teaching empathy is always the best approach, when if you talk to a child that has been abused, empathy indeed was the point of which right and wrong blended into action unchecked. It is these types of ideologies that stem from very specific places. And if we are so quick to have unchecked benevolence and implement these policies, these ideas, these curriculums, these trainings, we are seeing the fruit of it manifest on a national level. And so I would say it is not irresponsible as elected officials to have the conversation and to bring something in an argument like that to the attention of academia at large and our teachers that are presented with the trainings that they have to go through and with the belief systems that our children are presented. If we do get to the point where we have a terrorist organization video being shown and there is no recourse for that, we are indeed aligning our institutions to belief systems that are anti-Western and anti-American. And I would argue that our parents aren't sending our kids to school with the hope that that's what they come home with. I've also heard that, I guess my argument is that this is a hard conversation. And for the children that have borne those things and have taken it to their parents, and those parents have brought it to us and or maybe within the system, and that is revoked and rejected and put back into their laps. That's why that's why I would like to have this conversation, and that's why I think that we need to take a hard look at that. Now the argument, and I'll finish up here quick, is that resolutions, they bear no teeth, they're meant for a statement, and I guess my argument here again, and my support for the resolution, is that it is the first step of many that will be required of us, and that it makes that declaration that there are things proven from the top of Utah to the bottom, whether we realize it or not, if I may offer grace to those that are feeling attacked, unbeknownst to them, that we pause and we take a look at that, and we come up behind this legislation and we say, we're not quite there yet. That's all it is. We're not quite there yet, and that's the truth. And I validate that truth from what we see on a weekly basis. So anyway, with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So I'm calling this the color-coded draft. It's been termed draft 2. But if we look at that purple language at the bottom, it's clear down there right before the resolved. Believe it or not, this language came from our federal delegation. And if we look at what's happening in California, the USDE is sending letters saying, if you don't, we will X. I know of at least 2 letters that the state of California has received. And so when I had this conversation, they said, I think you guys should consider this. I said, I'm happy to put it in. I'm happy to articulate its origins with your permission. And I think we need to consider this because when our parents and their children do not get redress through the Utah State Board of Education or their local LEA, they are going to that online portal set up by the U.S. Department of Education, and they are reporting their concerns there. And I'm personally aware of over 100. And so I think we need to take this seriously. Whether it's known or unknown, whether it's purposeful or unpurposeful, it is happening in our schools. And when we have educators employed in this state putting out videos on Twitter and Instagram saying, I'm breaking the law and this is how I'm doing it, I think this board needs to take that seriously. And I think we need to have the conversation about how we are going to come into compliance with not only the laws set forth by our own legislature, but what are we going to do as we move to comply with our federal directives. And so, I would like to handle this today, but I understand the desire to have further discussion. And so with that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. So to restate the motion that's before the board, we'll wait for it to get on the screen. It's ultimately to postpone to next month's meeting. Let me just read it and then we'll go to Member Earl here. To restate the motion is to postpone consideration of the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah Schools Draft 2 until the full board meeting on May 1st, 2025. Member Earl.
Yeah, I'd like to make a substitute or an amendment to the motion. So the motion to what's our motion? That we make it so it's indefinitely, and that allows us to come back with if people want to work with the pieces that they want, they can do that. But I just feel like the way this has gone forward, there's so much I guess I'd have to be seconded, sorry.
Do we have a second? We have a couple of seconds. Go ahead. Back to you, Member Earl.
Yeah, I've gotten tons of emails, the same as the rest of you guys. I just feel like this did not add clarity. People are even more confused. So to continue with this, if people want to put another one together, it doesn't hinder that from happening. I think this gives some closure for the day. And it allows, whoever wants to continue to work on something they can, but I don't think starting from this is where we want to go. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Member Earl. I'm just going to add, I see some lights here. So yeah, let's go to Member Green. Go ahead.
And I think this is just for the public's awareness. Defining it as it is from academic references. And unless you have the definition, it becomes anti-Latino inaction. Without the definition, it becomes anti-multiculturalism. Without the definition, it becomes anti-SPED. You have to get this specific, or else it becomes a punching war. And that's not what we're looking for. We are addressing a systemic issue of ideologies and a framework and a foundation being laid that is, in essence, anti-American and anti-Constitution. Without the definition, you open up for the punching wars. Without it, this is bad. And so we were very thoughtful. That is the purpose. We're not going to let it, I refuse to let it become that, because that's not what this is about. And I feel bad for all of the hundreds of emails that we've gotten that thinks that that is what it's about. All the way down again to an SEL lesson. Individualism, selfish. Collectivism, good. Be a follower, not a leader. You think about those ideals. That's what we're focusing on.
Vice Chair Wood, and as a reminder, the motion before us is to remove the full board meeting on May 1st and replace it with indefinitely.
I appreciate this change because I see us in a spot where whatever we do, we continue bringing concern, frustration, and angst to a large group of people in our communities. I too have a very quiet, as Member Booth stated, I have a quiet district. They don't reach out very often. And yesterday, my phone did not stop ringing. And it was people who were concerned. We should be putting out information that when they read it, it is clear. It is defined. It tells us what it is that we care about in a positive way of what we want for our future. This does not do that. And until people can sit down and define it in a way that all of our community members, I think, talking to Member Earl last night, she said something that I thought was interesting. When there's this much angst, it is not right. And I've seen that with the board. When we can come together and we push and we pull and we iron it out and we come up with the right things, there's no angst. People agree, people come together. We can do this as a board. People have asked me numerous times, how's the new board going? I love this board. I love the differences of opinion. I love where we've come, but we have to work together, and this doesn't do that. And this doesn't do it for the people that we care about and we serve. And my constituents, I call these people my children. I'm trying to do what's best for the children of our state. This doesn't do this. And if we can put it off and people can come together and we can do the push, pull, and find, I don't think a resolution is the answer. If we need to define what compliance looks like, then we need to do that. We need to do our job. We do not need a political statement of what we think should be happening. We need to hold our LEAs accountable with proof, with defined things that are happening. This doesn't tell us. It's like, why do we have all this angst? Why are people saying it's this or this or this? Because that's what this doesn't say. It doesn't say the problems that we're seeing. And so I appreciate Member Earl's motion and will be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Member Bogus, then Member Lear.
Awesome. So thank you. I would just speak against the amendment. First of all, I think we're giving the proverbial middle finger to the legislature. I think we're giving the proverbial middle finger to our federal agencies who have spoken very boldly on these issues and have asked us to address them. And when we don't, with motions like this, I think it becomes very concerning that instead of saying, we hear you, we're once again dismissing the hundreds and maybe compounded thousands of complaints about radical DEI in our schools. And so when we say, hey, we're just not ever going to talk about this, that sends the message that we don't care about you. And I think that in order to send the right message, we need to keep it on May 1st and we need to have the conversation. And it might be heavy and it might be hard, but that's what we signed up to do. And if we don't do it, we put it on our children. And it's not fair and it's certainly not responsible to put it on our children. Thank you.
Member Lear.
Thank you. I also cannot support postponing this indefinitely. I think that almost creates more anxiety and ridden situation for the hundreds of emails and phone calls that we've all received. Because now the understanding is, so when are they going to talk about it? What is it going to say? What is it going to look like? Are they sufficiently informed about our opinions? I don't think indefinitely helps. Now, we may understand our practices, board members may understand our practices to say it could be 6 months and we're okay with that, or we're going to work together. But I don't think that says that to the individuals, the experts in many cases, and the families who've been emailing us. So to me, indefinitely does not help. I think there is a good reason to just vote this down and then let someone else bring it back in a different form. And maybe the public will react differently to a different kind of a statement. To the point about definitions are needed, if they're needed, then they're needed in a rule. They're not needed in a resolution that is without any legal merit. So it's possible they're needed, but not in this form, I would argue. So I can't support indefinitely. I think the fact that it's left hanging is not a fair I want to use the word resolution again, but it's not a fair outcome for those people that are concerned in their heart of hearts. That what does this mean for unified sports? What does this mean for Latinos in Action? What does this mean for all of those different groups that we've heard about today in person, and then we've heard about in emails that are so meaningful to so many people? So I can't support indefinitely either. I support not supporting this particular resolution and letting someone try their hand at something that's different. Maybe a rule. I feel like we have what we need from direction in the legislature from House Bill 261. I don't like it, but I accept that it's the law. And finally, let me say, I am not one who does trust, forgive me, Vice Chair Wood, but I don't trust this board to be inclusive in discussions. We've seen meetings monthly by a small group that doesn't include all the board members. I don't have any hope and certainty that that would change. So I don't see how the whole board could work on something that some board members believe is needed, and I don't even have the opportunity to say I don't think it's needed, except right here. So sorry to take the time, but I don't support indefinitely either.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hart?
I call the question.
The question's been called. I don't see any of the lights. Well, we're going to say it. Is there opposition to calling the question? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. The motion is then to postpone consideration of the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah Schools Draft 2 indefinitely. That motion fails. 10 against, 4 in favor. Those in favor are members Carey, member Wood, Vice Chair Wood, member Hymas, and member Earl. This brings us back to the motion that was made by member Hall. And let's just wait for that to, here we go. And that is to... Oh, can we get that screen back on for, yeah. While we're working on that, let me restate the motion that's before us. The motion is to postpone consideration of the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah Schools Draft 2 until the full board meeting on May 1st, 2025. Let's vote. Thank you, board members. That motion fails. 9 against, 5 in favor. Those in favor being Member Bogus, Member Brinton, Member Kelly, Member Hall, Member Green. This brings us to the underlying motion. Just wait for that to appear back on our screens. That the board approve the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah schools, draft 2. Member Lear.
On this?
Call the question. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Let's put it to a vote. Yep, this is to call the question. Okay. Although we have an 8-6 vote, that does fail since we need a majority. Is that right? 2/3. Are we there? I thought so. Okay. So that motion fails, which means we are back open for discussion. And Member Carey.
Chair, if I may, I just have a point of information, and maybe this should be directed at council, but I'll just put it out on the table. Vice Chair Bollinger observed that we have a board policy 2003 that says that our policies don't have the weight of law or board rule. And when I'm reading the resolution, the second to last sentence directs the LEAs in the state as though it were rule. It says each shall, not may, but shall immediately disband and rescind all associated documents, trainings, programs. So my question is, we're using language that would make this resolution basically into a rule. I always thought resolutions were, it's a new year, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get to the gym. This is like saying, I'm making a resolution that you're going to lose weight and you're going to go to the gym. And I think when we do that, we have to use our rule-making authority, not our resolution ability. So I would like to ask council, I guess it should be directed to AAG Abuse, but is this something that we should be even considering, given that this, it appears to be a rule dressed as a resolution? And I want to know if that is something that this body should be voting on, given that it doesn't comport, up to me, to our own policy.
AAG Abuse.
Thank you, Chair.
You would be voting in violation of your own policy. So you would be violating your own policy by making or voting for a resolution that mandates something to happen as if it were a rule or a law.
Thank you.
And you do have a policy also on policies that says that all of your policies are binding on the board. So you would be violating 2 policies.
Follow up, Member Carey, or
Well, she got me with the we're violating 2 policies. I didn't see this, so I'm digesting that. But in light of that, Chair, it doesn't appear that this is right. It just doesn't seem like it should be here. And I want to make clear that I'm not addressing the merits at this point, but just procedurally, I don't want to set the precedent that if we don't want to go through the committee process, we don't want to have the vetting done in committee, and that's one of the benefits of rulemaking. I don't want to set the precedent by saying, well, this is good, well, this is here, we should do something with it, because I think it encourages that type of workaround. So, in light of that, if it's appropriate, well, let me think. Sorry, Chair.
Sure, thank you. We've got Vice Chair Hart, and then Member Bogus, and then Member Booth. And let me just interrupt for clarity here, because Vice Chair Hart and Vice Chair Wood and myself, we don't get to push our buttons to be in line. So if it looks like you're being skipped, I apologize. We don't do that. They just say, hey, I have a question, and then I mentally put them in the queue. So anyway, Vice Chair Hart.
Well, I was going to say something, but now
I'm sorry.
I call the question.
Sorry, recall the this is a different,
Actually, that's a previous question. I'm calling a previous.
which question are you calling?
No, I can,
We call the question on Member Earl's
yeah,
motion
that's
to.
not what we're talking about right
Right.
now.
Right now, we're on the main motion,
Right, so I called
and
the
so
question.
the question has been called. Is there a second?
Point of order.
Point of order.
Carol already called the question, we voted, it failed.
That was on the amendment. Was it on this one? Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Then,
So,
Then-
back to you, Member or
Yeah.
Vice Chair Hart.
yeah, we make rules and we administer caps if we have problems in our districts. We do not write resolutions, period. A resolution does virtually nothing besides create chaos. If we have a problem, then we need to look at our rules and write caps, period. And the legislature helped us out with clarifying some of those procedures this year, and I believe we should give those a shot rather than make resolutions and things.
Thank you. Member Bogus?
Thank you. If we could look at the language of the resolves very quickly. So this says nothing other than the bill was signed on January 30th of 2024. It went into effect on July 1st. Here we are 10 months later, and our own agency has not yet completed that process, and our LEAs seemingly have not completed that process because we continue to get complaints of violations. And all this is saying is there's code in effect. There is code in effect, and this body expects you to come into compliance with that code. It doesn't sidestep any policies. It doesn't sidestep anything. It just says, hey, and if that language is something that the body's not comfortable with, then let's float an amendment and remove it. But there's nothing there that creates rule under a sidestepping mechanism. It just says we have laws in place, and this board is affirming the laws that are in place in this state, and we are affirming that we expect our LEAs to come into compliance with the directives of the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Member Booth, then Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair Hymas. So I've had, you may have noticed in your emails, there were a lot of responses from Provo District. All of the board, superintendent, tons of teachers, student body presidents, tons of students. And living in Spanish Fork, I've had a lot of feedback from my neighbors and the people that I worked with for 16 years. I know that this board is not afraid of the work that needs to be done. I resonate with Board Member Green's assertion that we need to be specific, because when we say we're not in compliance or we have hundreds of reports that this is not, the people that I'm working with in my districts are looking at me with big eyes going, what? show me help us know what we've got to do to be in compliance, because we have worked our socks off to get ourselves and to communicate with our LEA, with our teachers, with our administrators, so that we are in compliance with 261. So I think we have work to do, and whether it's compliance with, it's very clear, 261 is clear. These are the things you do, these are the things you don't do. So if we need to be more clear and get a rule in place that helps them understand things that they're doing that they don't know that they're doing, as far as they're feeling guilty, I don't think anybody in the 2 districts that I'm representing feels guilty. They feel like they're on top of it, and they're trying to respond if anything comes up, anything comes to their attention. There's no one in Nebo or Provo who would want to be not in compliance with the law of the state of Utah. So I'm just eager for us to do the work. I'm eager to do the definitions. I'm eager to, whatever it takes for a committee or however you organize it, we need to be able to be clear. We can't make a blanket statement that says we're not in compliance and you've got 60 days to do it or you're in big trouble. They think that they're doing it. At the state level, I think that we think we're doing it. So I would love to hear the very specific examples that show that there is not compliance, and indicate ways that we can be more clear in our explanation of the law through our rulemaking, so that everyone can be in compliance and we can still differentiate between the definitions of DEI, as those words were once used for generations of time, and how we used those 3 no words to meet the specific needs of children, and how those children and those students are still having their needs met, even though we don't say those words anymore. What words do we say in order to meet those needs? Because just because we don't use those words, and just because whatever the definitions and everything else is that we've got to get in place, doesn't mean that we still don't have children whose needs need to be met individually. So how do we do the work? What would be our plan as we go forward? I would love to hear from leadership or whoever wants to give us some suggestions, but we can't back away from this. This is important for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Chair, thank you. I'd like to make a motion and then speak to it if I may. And my motion is going to be that this body indefinitely, that this matter be tabled indefinitely, and then I'd like to speak to the motion. No. It's my understanding the last motion was a motion to postpone indefinitely. This would be a motion to table indefinitely.
Let me look at, let's just take a second here. The motion that has been suggested is that the board table the motion indefinitely. We are going to just look and see if that is in order, so just give us a couple minutes. If it is, we'll seek a second and speak to it. If not, then we'll go from there. Thank you. After looking through Robert's rules, it looks like that's not going to work at this time. So that brings us back to the original motion which is that the board approve the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah schools, draft 2. I've got Member Bogus, Member Brenton, and Member Earl lined up.
With your permission, Chair?
Question?
Sorry, you gave the order, but you didn't actually call on me. So I'm just trying to be respectful.
Please, Member Bogus.
Okay. So if I could draw our attention to the code lines in particular, I'm looking at what is cited here as 53B 118. And in this section, clear down in C, little 2, L, interestingly enough, it is a violation of the law to operate programs, and I'm quoting the law in this state, quote, referred to or named diversity, equity, and inclusion. So regardless of the prohibited discriminatory practices that we get complaints about all the time, and that there's allegations of not following this code, this alone says we have a problem. Because the code, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, says you can't even name it that. And so we really need to consider, it says on 2, prohibited discriminatory practice also means engaging in or maintaining a policy, procedure, practice, program, office, initiative, or required training that is referred to or named diversity, equity, and inclusion. And while some of those things under that banner may not actually violate whatever comes above L, we've got problems if we're still in this space. And so that alone, I think we need to look at, because just that alone is an issue.
Got to create some new words.
And well, we've got to do something, because we've got confusion, we've got obfuscation, we've got, again, teachers making videos and posting them on the internet about how they're breaking the law. It's very weird to me, but we still need to have a conversation. And it's clear to me that conversation needs had. And I think that postponing this to May 2 is appropriate at this time, because I'm not certain that we're equipped. Well, I'm equipped. I can throw 50 examples for you. We can put them on the screen. But I don't think that's where this body wants to go today. I think they would rather take the 30 days, if that's the will of the group, and have this conversation. And so I appreciate your time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a comment just briefly from Superintendent Dixon, and then we're back to Member Brenton.
Thank you, Chair Hymas. If you can scroll back to the line that Member Bogus just referenced with the 3 terms together. So L, I appreciate you highlighting that. I think that might be a point where we could get some legal advice, because when the law was passed, the conversation was had and clarified, can those terms be used? This was a huge point of discussion. And the answer was they can be used, but not together. So there's not, this is the feedback we received both from council, and it was, you can go back and look at some of the debates, because this was big for us, trying to understand. We have inclusionary practices in special education. That's where that term came from many, many years ago, and we are very intentional about making sure that our students with disabilities are included in general education services and have access to content. That is federal law. So we have had concerns about you're using the word inclusion, and it really means this. Well, what it means in this office and what we support is inclusionary practices for students with disabilities. The word equity can be found, the word diversity can be found. So we had a lot of discussion, like, are those illegal words? And the feedback we got is no, but when they are used in concert as a program or a practice or an office. So that's maybe something that the board might want to consider having some legal analysis on or further discussion at some point. Because I do think, Member Bogus, when I hear you say that this agency is out of compliance and we're wondering how, Nothing has been brought to our attention. We are holding others accountable. Just last week, I called a district who seemed to be out of compliance and said, when you have an office using these terms together, that is not in compliance with the law. What are you doing to comply? So those are the ways that we attack this, but it's, again, those, not only the terms together, but is there something that runs afoul of the law? So I raised that flag to say that's probably a huge point of confusion and contention that could use a legal briefing. Thanks.
Member Brinton.
I feel like there's been a lot of fear and misconstruing of the DEI, and we've had so many emails. I mean, I have over 200, right? But so many are saying, keep DEI, we need DEI. That's concerning to me. As I see this, we are talking about complying with the law. We are created by the Constitution. The legislature defines and authorizes us our powers. They passed laws regarding removing of radical DEI ideologies that seek to break people into groups of oppressed versus oppressor, identity politics. The governor signed this into law. So to me, I see this resolution as setting the direction that, yes, we want to make sure we have so many examples that have been sent of non-compliance individually, not like districts as a whole or teachers are all bad, like individual teachers or classrooms or trainings being put on. One in one of my own districts from an author who wrote a book called Ruthless Equity, who was brought, and I had teachers come to me and say, why are we still being sent to trainings that cover ruthless equity, where that's the theme instead of academics? Hasn't this been been ruled against the law? So I would just say it is hard to have the conversation, and there can be misdirection with emotion. California did just receive letters about not being in compliance and removing funding. So I just think how we handle this matters, and with decorum and grace. And of course, this has nothing to do with special ed or disabilities or targeting groups, but this is about going back to American ideals and supporting that everyone has equal opportunity and is treated equally under the law. So I know Utah law also affirms that parents have the primary role, and our role is secondary and supportive as a school and a state. So I just hope we can have these conversations and make sure that we do everything that we can to show that we are complying with the law. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Member Earl and then Member Bogus, and we're coming up on the end of our agenda time. I just want to throw that out there. And so if we've spoken to something multiple times, be considerate, but let's continue moving forward with Member Earl.
Okay, well, you'll have to let me know. So that's been spoken to. So just in general, the language, whether we intended it to be that way or not, the first three, especially the first three paragraphs, immediately jump to Soviet, they jump to the language itself, and I'm not questioning whether or not those are more exact or whatever. That isn't the point, but that people attach that. There's an emotion attached to that. And it's hard to separate that out. It's clear in reading these emails, whether it was the intention or not, it's clear that people have a perception. And to get rid of that perception, you don't just say, well, we'll pass it and then they'll figure it out. I have concerns with that. Okay, I would like to make a motion that we move to the next agenda item.
Just for clarity, that agenda item is lunch. Is that,
Yes, that's what I'm
okay.
motioning.
Okay. So there's a motion to move to agenda item 9, which is lunch. We have a second. Okay. Member Bogus, did you want to speak to that motion, Member Earl?
No, well, maybe I do. No, I'm hoping that I understand the concern. I've heard it. I just don't, if there's this much misunderstanding, then we're not there yet. And I think we can get there. I think there's things that we can do. We're not there yet. And anyways, I think that the work can continue, but I think the direction, I think it's even questionably out of compliance with our bylaws as far as what we can do, or as far as our policy, I mean. So anyways, I just hope that we can be thoughtful and move forward on things. Anyways, lunch sounds good.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Well, I would like to deal with this, and so I would speak against the motion because I think that we have Superintendent Dixon brought attention to the fact, and the motion, if we go back to the motion so that we can finish this current agenda item, is to postpone till May 2nd or May 1st.
Sorry, we are on the
Oh, I
main
apologize.
motion to
Okay.
accept draft 2 or not take no action.
Well, I think we need to finish this. I think that we owe our constituents resolution to this. And if there, if people don't like the compliance language, they can amend it out. I think we need to finish this conversation and provide resolution to our taxpayers and the people that have engaged with us and had conversations with us. I think we owe them a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. To the motion, Member Booth.
Can I move that we send this to Law and Licensing Committee?
Not at this time.
No.
So you can move that, assuming her motion to go to lunch fails.
Oh, okay. Well, I like lunch, so there you go.
Okay, so the motion before the board then is that we move to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 9, which is lunch. It's been seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. That motion fails. 9 against, 5 in favor. Those in favor being Vice Chair Hart, Member Hall, Member Carey, Member Brinton, Member Earl. So we are back to the motion that has been before us. I'll just give it a second, give the screen a second. The motion is that the board approve the resolution directing removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Utah schools, draft 2. Member Booth, are you speaking to this motion, or are we ready to vote? We are ready to vote. Let's go ahead and vote. That motion fails. 10 in opposition, 5 in favor. That those in favor being Member Brinton, Member Bogus, Member Hall, Member Green. 4. That's on me. Yes, 4 in favor. Again, being Member Brinton, Member Bogus, Member Hall, and Member Green. Board members, I've got a light on from Member Booth.
Before we go to lunch, I would like to propose or move that we send a communication, I don't know, press release, response to the hundreds of people that have been that have been contacting us regarding this agenda item. And you have it, I think, in your emails now. It's in front of you. It would say, it would be addressed to Utah citizens, our governor, our lieutenant governor, Rick Nye, Utah State Senate, Utah State House of Representatives. And it would say to our partners in public education, we hear you. We thank you for your emails, phone calls, and conversations in this season of change, when so many of the foundational principles that have provided public education with direction for decades seems unclear and blurred. The Utah State Board of Education reaffirms their unwavering support and commitment to Utah parents, educators, administrators, and most of all, our remarkable students in whom we have the utmost faith and hope for their future success. We welcome the opportunity to step up our efforts with valued colleagues and statewide leader partners in this noble endeavor to open doors of opportunity for all Utah students. The board is committed to enhancing public education through strategic collaboration with state and local leaders, as well as seeking input from area experts. We express gratitude to the literal army of valued educators and leaders of learning who have dedicated countless hours of worry and Herculean efforts to bring Utah's education community into compliance with state law, while simultaneously maintaining a safe, welcoming learning environment for our students who are our hope for America's future. We welcome the ongoing challenge of finding new ways of preparing the next generation for a kind and empathetic world, a place where our friends and neighbors courageously meet the challenges of the 21st century together. Sincerely, the Utah Board of Education.
Thank you, Member Booth. The motion has been stated. Do we have a second? Hearing no second, I would recommend, Member Booth, that if there are people that you would like to send this to, I would remove the board and put in Board Member Randy Booth and send it to whomever you feel appropriate. And if there are other board members who would like similar, then maybe they can connect with Member Booth as well. With that, board members, let's move to lunch.